Monuments to narcissism, demanding others sweat in your stead, gorging upon that which you have not earned. That is why you have been invited here.
Our railjack Cephalon Psi has intercepted a Corpus distress signal.
Potential catastrophic sensor glitch. Visual confirmation required. Crew, did you see that?
A Corpus supply convoy has met a fatal end.
Commence salvage. Void storm resurgence probable. Get the lead out.
And we move in to liberate that sweet loot for ourselves. When we arrive on the scene, we see a massive void storm, a canyon in the fabric of reality into which space itself cascades into the void like a waterfall. This Corpus convoy succumbed to the void.
Corpus salvage team headed for debris field.
We get caught in a dogfight with Corpus cleaners and dispatch them easily, only to be targeted by Vala Glorios, a name dripping with valor, with glory, with thumos, that calls us to remember the themes of Plato's Callipolis, invoking Parvos Granum's name to remind us of the myth of the metals and Warframe's critique of capitalist ideology. Vala Glorios and her sisters of Parvos have been privateering rare treasures across the Origin system, now a hostile acquisition of our railjack.
Crew, sensor glitch is back. Stay sharp. This may not be a bug. Salvage team eliminated. Alert. Void storm imminent. Corpus reinforcements imminent. Obligatory withdrawal imminent. This escalated quickly.
Captain Vala Glorios. So pleased to meet you. I should have expected Tenorats among the flotsam. Sequester that railjack for Parvos.
Cephalon Psi attempts a void jump to remove us from the fight.
Gunfight not an option. Isolating escape corridor. Anomaly detected.
But an entity from the void blocks our path. A ghost ship. A ship made of void energy.
Phosphine cliffs. That takes me back.
I see you, you bastard. I see you! Contact Parvos Granum immediately. Get me authorization for multiphasic ordnance. Tell him I've found the damned ghost.
Vala Glorios calls out to the ghost. Like Ahab seeing his white whale, Vala Glorios turns her attention away from us. The ghost ship moves to engage the Sisters of Parvos, giving Cephalon Psi the opportunity to extract.
Evasive. Focus shields.
Isolating escape corridor. All hands, evasive maneuvers. Escape corridor locked. Grab something.
Never one to squander an opportunity, we find a nearby Corpus Pilar and move to liberate some information about the vessel that proved so distracting to our new friend Vala.
Captain Glorios knows something about that vessel. Crew, infiltrate and recover Orokin-era naval records. Our ghost ship has a name. I want it. Disable all priority targets.
Let's soften them up. Torpedoes. Fire at will. I want boots on the deck. Clear the tubes and launch ram sleds.
Proceed to your primary objective. This is not a drill.
Torpedoes primed. Stand by to salvage their remains.
Archive loaded. Our vessel was called the Tempestarii. Void rescue craft. Missing since the old war.
We have its name. The Tempestari was a kind of tugboat used during the Old War to pull back ships that got stuck on the other side. But it too fell to the void while trying to rescue one last cryopod.
Exemplary service record. Rescue total 2,017 souls. Cited for bravery in the second and third Tharsis engagements. Multiple commendations. A legend. Lost during a void storm of unprecedented magnitude. Interesting. Final mission contains a black mark. Refusal to withdraw. Logs record final transmissions. Calling into the void before being engulfed. She has been calling ever since. The Tempestari went down saving lives. She still waits for an answer. Duty lingers, like pain in a phantom limb, like the voices of a crew long dead. The Tempestari is suffering, searching for one final rescue. Saving us may enable her to complete her duty.
We will help it find rest by completing its last voyage. But first, we need to get on board.
Perhaps the rot is too deep. Perhaps the father should abandon his children. Perhaps it is time for a new philosophy.
Who waits for the shadow? Possibility. Friend-foe identification protocol. Loading Orokin-era distress countersigns. Prepare to disengage void drive. Transmitting Orokin-era distress signal. Here goes nothing. Your golden masters.
The shadow calls to us, and we call back posing as Orokin.
Countersign unsatisfactory. Evasive maneuvers. Attempting to reopen communications.
The shadow responds with violence. Yet when we respond as stranded people awaiting rescue, it becomes passive and lets us on deck.
Comms channel reopened. Waits for the shadow. We, the lost souls. She hears us. Tempestari. All aboard are safe. Your mission complete. The Tempestari has lowered shields. Crew, your presence is requested aboard the Tempestari.
In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the part of the human psyche which holds the unconscious parts of our self-image, the values and the desires that we reject or dislike. The shadow is parallel and opposite to the ego, the conscious part of ourselves which we wish to project to society.
You have been invited into an unknown realm. Tread lightly.
The shadow also represents sexual urges and our drive towards life and self-preservation. Jungian psychology also believed that ideas themselves are inherited genetically. The idea inherited here may be the Egyptian concept of the shadow, the shoot, which was considered the form of a person and their individual identity when represented in statues and art. Yet the shadow aboard the Tempestari is alone. It is separate not only from its ego, but from its very body. When consciousness touches the void, it creates a thing, the shadow self manifested.
The shadow. Concentrated void energy. He is not conventionally alive.
It points us toward completing its final rescue mission, to rescue its body, the Warframe Sevagoth.
Their final rescue. The location data is corrupted. He cannot retrieve it. We can help.
If Sevagoth is the shadow, the connection to the collective unconscious, then what in this story represents the ego?
Data restored. Downloading coordinates.
Before we are able to proceed, we are found vulnerable by the Sisters of Parvos, by Vala Glorios.
Their shields are down! Oh, sweet Tenno! You went and lulled the beast to sleep for me. How kind!
In Carl Jung's analytical psychology method, the shadow is believed to show itself to people in dreams when in conflict with a person's ego. The Tempestari was a void rescue vessel during the Old War, but one that served the Tenno rebellion. As a casualty of war, the Tempestari destroyed Vala Glorios' home. The void connects us to the dream that haunts her, in which we will see the shadow demonstrate its connection to life with powers that heal it from damage, while the Shanty in Vala's mind reveals that Vala's white whale may have more to do with her relationship to the Corpus and Parvos Granum than to do with Sevagoth.
I was working in an exosuit when the Tempestari destroyed Lucretia platform. I drifted for days among the frozen fragments of my crew. My sisters. I dreamed their dead, gaping mouths were singing with me yet. So it's into the void, now me girls and me boys, from mother's hands we go. We'll be sailing to the sun till the voyage is done, then we'll be sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below. Our sailing ships for the hard and the quick, we roll our load and go. There's a living to be made, or there's hell to pay when you're sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below. On high with the devil in his eye and a golden hand, I'm told. It can hurt you, it can hold you, he can kick you or console you when you're sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below. honest and true when it's my time to go. Won't you lay me down under Granum crowns, and I'll be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold. Sisters below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below. Today we sail on the solar rail, for there's much we just don't know. So farewell with a kiss, then it's fast for the mist, till we're all sleeping in the cold below.
The song Sleeping in the Cold Below foreshadows the events of the New War with its allusion to the Egyptian ship of Re in its opening line, "We'll be sailing to the sun," while hearkening the sailor's myth of Davy Jones' locker with the titular line, "Sleeping in the cold below." For both the ancient Egyptian and the colonial sailors, these symbols were metaphors for moving from life to death. The Corpus faction, and Parvos Granum in particular representing Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations, as metaphors for critiques of capitalism, are furthered by the line, "There's a living to be made, or there's hell to be paid when you're sleeping in the cold below." Whereas the Vox Solaris song, "We All Live Together," was about using labor to resist and rise above the burdens of capitalism, in this song, labor is presented as something you must do to keep from sinking. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep. The next section alludes to Parvos Granum, using biblical language to indicate the cultish worship of the acquisition of wealth above all other considerations, with the line, "There's a man on high with the devil in his eye." The devil being how we Tenno and Warframes are referred to by our lasting nemesis, Balis. Given that Parvos and Vala both seem to be survivors of the Orokin era, they would be aware of the terms the Orokin used for us. This is followed by the line, "And a golden hand I'm told, it can hurt you, it can hold you, it can kick you or console you," which expresses that capitalism is not fair nor equal to all involved. It chooses who to be kind to and who to harm, most assuredly based on that golden hand, the invisible hand of the market that gives preference to those with gold and discriminates against those without. This is furthered by the second to last stanza of the song, "When it's my time to go, won't you lay me down under Granum crowns?" This line is an allusion to the Greek and Roman practice of Charon's obol, a funerary rite in which the deceased's body would have a coin placed in the mouth in order to pay Charon, the ferryman of the river Styx, to take the person's soul to the afterlife. One would typically only receive multiple coins if they were expecting a return trip across the river, as in the Greek myth, the Catabasis of Psyche. The coin placed into the mouth was an obolos, a cheap coin worth only 1/6 that of the standard currency of drachmae, which sociologically indicated to historians that the funeral rite was not exclusive to the wealthy. Vala Glorios juxtaposes this by asking for Granum crowns, a coveted and premium currency among the corpus that indicates socially that one has been given Parvos Granum's favor. It will also be juxtaposed again in the New War when we explore that quest's inspiration with the ancient Egyptian Sabate dispute between a man and his ba. The final stanza saying, "Farewell with a kiss, then it's fast for the mist," which I believe is a poetic reference to traveling into the void, mainly because the void is frequently described with water-themed symbolism. as well as my own association with the mist being the veil between our world and the other world, coming from Irish mythology's Tirnanog and the myth of O'Shane and Niamh entering Tirnanog by traveling through the mist. From the song and the theming of Jungian psychology, we can see that Vala Glorios is in great internal turmoil. She is devoted to the capitalism of the Corpus, but she is also obsessed with the shadow that resists them, that fights against them. She sees the shadow as her own, the ancient mariner's albatross around her neck.
Most wise founder, protect your avaricious servant.
They're gonna do something real bad to me. You gotta get me out of here.
We awaken from the dream to the Tempestarii trapped by Vala's ship.
Multiphasic beings have the Tempestari imprisoned. Solution: junk the beam generator.
She describes herself, her sisters, as monsters, looking to eat the Shadow's heart, which I believe may be a reference to the story The Legend of the Eaten Heart, found in the Decameron, a 14th century anthology by Giovanni Boccaccio, in which a man feeds his deceased lover's heart to his wife as an act of revenge, and popularized the leitmotif of eating someone's heart as a metaphor for revenge throughout Europe.
My kind are the only monsters this system needs, Tenno. We have no time for old ghosts. I shall rip that ship to pieces and eat its heart.
Objective: collapse the anchor field. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for possible countermeasures. Countermeasures are interfering with my progress. Rectify. Those jamming drones are a serious problem. Progress halted. Progress halted. Jamming drones. Work complete. Failing. Get to the override terminal.
Forget capture. We'll sift through the wreckage instead. Tracers locked? Engage.
Back to the Tempestari. Now. Tempestari is charging unidentified countermeasures. Stay in range. Swat down pests. Countermeasures charged. On your mark. Unleash the storm.
As we escape with the Tempestari, it fires an ordnance that opens a void rift, trapping Vala Glorios inside.
Sisters! Hear me! Hold them to hell! Back! By the hand! Almost himself!
We are part of this story. We have a duty. Enter the void. Search and rescue. We must complete the Shadow's final mission. Together.
With Vala set adrift, we proceed to the void coordinates given to us by the Shadow.
Cephalon size report. Tempestari. Final voyage. Today, a centuries-long journey ended. Together, we braved a turbulent void. Deep within, he who had been lost was found.
This Sevagoth, now united as one, may finally pass on. We say farewell with a spacefaring Viking funeral.
Sevagoth, a Warframe believed lost forever. His energy almost extinct. With his last spark of life, Sevagoth embraced his shadow once again, and both were at peace.
We are content. The quest ends within a partition of the void that is familiar if you had finished the Protea Protocol quest. Vala Glorios also received her wish, joining Parvos Granum in the part of the void where he hid himself away.
My brother was a witless man, happy as a hog, face down in the trough. No thought of the farmer's axe. He was a brute above my asperous constitution. Yet he had not the will nor the guile to let me guide that brawn. So, in my youth, I often imagined I had another sibling, a specter of sorts, a sister. And in my mind, she and I, oh, how we would conspire. Great schemes, risk trades, rapacious plots. And should I ever find myself back at the trough, penniless, betrayed, rich only in enemies, she'd be at my side.
Stay true.